What's up, everybody? Brett here. We're back today. Some more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. Gonna be me piloting the Skaven versus Cotton Pucker 99 playing as Brettonian. And it was a fun one, y'all. So I was kind of dabbling with some very wide Skaven builds that aren't very focused. I was trying to see like what I could get away with. And I was trying to have some fun. So let's kind of break down what my thought process was. So whenever I like to play, I like to go as wide as possible. And what that usually means is cutting spells, cutting abilities, cutting mounts sometimes, cutting quality of troops. And you don't need to cut all of that because Skaven units are so cheap, but you got to cut most of it. So what I decided to cut, look at my lord. My lord is a warlord. Let's go ahead and get the info up. He's only got 2 abilities, and these abilities are only designed to keep him from getting sniped. He's got World's Edge Armor, which gives him 60 armor, and Verminous Valor, which gives him, the ability to pop out of infantry blobs and get some leadership. And as far as my spellcaster is a Warlock Engineer, and all I have on him is Lightning. That's it. We're just going to drop Wart Lightning, Overcast usually whenever I can, and try and blow some dudes up. So my front line is just a bunch of clan rats with spears, and their job is to catch cav, fight peasants, which is what I anticipated. So, you're going up against Brettonian, and there's really 2 types of armies you'll face. One is cav heavy with weak infantry, and the other is just super wide with good infantry and maybe some trebuchets, stuff like that, and maybe 1 or 2 units of really weak cavs, like some knight errants or something. So I thought this build might be good against both. And one of the cool little synergies that I was proud of that is very hard to make work when you're getting overwhelmed. And I think in retrospect, this kind of like strategy is really good, but maybe my positioning was a little bad. Clan Vulcan Tail Slashers, the regiments are renowned. You don't get to see them very often. But for 500 gold, they have decent stats. And they also are fire resistant 70%, and they do flaming attacks. And that's only relevant because standing right behind them are 2 units of Warpfire Thrower weapon teams. So my idea is to throw them into a melee blob and then shoot directly into them. And it sucks because in this game you can't really friendly fire yourself. But that's generally the idea. And the idea is to kind of like, if they're fighting in the center, the Warpfire Throwers go here and shoot into the blob. So that was the level of micro I was attempting. But this got pretty complicated pretty quickly when I saw that my opponent was circling me with some Grail Knights and Knights of the Realm. And in this moment I realized my entire formation was going to have to change. I've got the Council Guard here with their Guardian Aura, but they're just an incredibly powerful, unbreakable, Storm Vermin with Halberd unit. And I'm going to need them. I'm going to need my Slingers to pull back. I'm going to have to form kind of a different formation. Right now I'm turning my formation to kind of face this way. But I've also got these Warplock Jezzails. I'm going to be repositioning them in a second. I've got 2 of these dudes, the snipers. And they are going to be targeting down the Grail Knights. And it's going to be pretty difficult for them to get in. Right now, my opponent cannot see. I've got 2 units of Death Runners. They are invisible. And if I can get them into melee on the right targets, we'll be able to use their Weeping Blade to cut armor down by 50%, which on a Grail Knight is substantial. That's 45 armor. That's a lot. I've also got Rat Ogres, just in case. They are armor piercing. They're very good at blocking up large targets, and if they need to, they can get into units like Foot Squires, Battle Pilgrims, things like that. That's what I was thinking of, and I figured we'd have, a great chance of shutting them down. And then kind of the piece de resistance, a unit that you don't always see very often because they're very hard to make work, the Poison Wind Globadiers. So these units have anti-large armor-piercing missiles. In a pinch, you can use them against infantry. They do magic damage from ranged as well, but they are awesome at tearing up cav, only if you can protect them. So that's my army, guys, and it's a pretty wild one in terms of all the different ranged elements that I need to protect and control. So the Grail Knights are skirting. I'm starting to get my formation changed. First thing I did was square off. Second thing I'm going to do is start allocating resources to defend against this flanking maneuver. While my opponent's army is a very slow-moving infantry army that he hasn't started moving yet. Men-at-arms in the fronts with shields. Lots of peasant mobs just to absorb hits. A couple Foot Squires to cut through who knows what. I think Storm Vermin probably beat these guys in a 1v1. In a fair 1v1. And then a Grail Relic here to boost their leadership. He's got a Damsel with the Lore of Life. You're definitely going to need that, especially if you plan on bringing these types of units. So he's got Albrecht de Bordelot with his anti-large specialty. Let's see if we can hover over his abilities. He's got Spirit of the Tempest, so he's increasing charge bonus and speed. Foe Seeker, of course. Rally, of course. Heroic Killing Blow. So looking to snipe out Lords, probably. You know, if I had like a Grayseer or something on a big Screaming Bell, these guys would be able to snipe that out no problem. Especially the Royal Hippogriff Knights. Their models are extremely healthy. They didn't used to be that way. They used to be pretty easy to kill a model or to get one stuck on the ground. Now their mass is greatly increased, and their just survivability with heals is quite amazing. You give them an Earthblood or a Regrowth as soon as they charge in, and you'll find that they'll stay 6 out of 6 models until their HP starts to get to around like the 30% mark. And that's pretty amazing. So alright guys, with everything gone over, let's get it rolling. There's also Dwellers Below, which I was not expecting on the Lore of Life caster. That's a spell that fell out of favor a while back once they nerfed it. It used to do just horrendous damage. It used to be one of the most broken spells in the game. And that was my bad. I didn't check that they had it. I saw the Damsel Lore of Life. I expected the the usual kit, but yeah, I was not playing around that. But I don't think I blobbed up too badly. But we'll see. We'll see how badly I mess up. So right now, what I'm using in my favor is the fact that I know that my opponent can't see these Death Runners, and I've kind of got them as bait in the front here. I don't want them to take the charge, but if they do take the charge, they'll use those Weeping Blades, and then they'll drop down to so low. It'll be really a piece of cake for our Council Guard or even Clan Rats to come in and start mopping up Grail Knights. So right now you can see the green laser beams firing in. That's what they look like anyway. They're Warp Stone bullets that just tear through. Just heavy armor piercing. Oh god, they just sniped that dude. That one guy in particular got sniped off his horse. And my opponent, I think, is having a little bit of trouble dealing with my ability to defend my flank. He set them up and around, that's fine. But in the meantime, I'm sniping him out. And it's hard to know, is he going to keep going? Is he going to slam into here? Is he going to try and find a weak spot? And I'm preparing for this frontal assault. I just used a Warp Lightning right here from my Warlock Engineer. And now I've got to worry because, he's got the aerial superiority. He can come in anywhere he wants and disrupt my my formation. And wisely, he's going to go into the Warp Fire Throwers, which is going to really... It kind of aggravates me because it doesn't give me much chance to use them. But it was a bit of a trap. So as soon as he lands, I'm going to be starting to move my stuff. So I've got my Poison Wind Globadiers. They're shooting at Albric, who doesn't have the same type of sustain as, someone like Lewin Leoncourt. Albric just doesn't have that heal. He relies on the Damsel to do that for him. We can go ahead and slow-mo it here. So I've got my Warlock Engineer. He doesn't have his armor, so he's not draining any of these units. He's going to be fighting against the Damsel Lore of Life, which is a great fight for him. And the Vulcan Tail Slashers will fight all day versus Peasant Mobs. But I have got to get these Royal Hippogriff Knights out of my backline. I've got to get Albric de Bordelot out. So what I've done is I've kind of segmented all my range units, and it looks pretty chaotic in here. But what I've decided to do is really focus. I've noticed that my opponent's his micro is suffering here, and he's got his guys hanging out in the back. So I took full advantage. He sniped out one of my Warplock Jezzails, but they'll probably come back. And what I've done is I've taken all of these elements. The Rat Ogres can pin them in place with the Council Guard, and the Death Runners that he probably didn't see until the last second. And then the Warplock Jezzails, plus the Poison Wind Globadiers, plus even the Skaven Slave Slingers are going to tear them down. Even if I lose these units here, which is looking very possible, I've got to get rid of them. They're an enormous investment. They're 2k gold, which is huge. I can't let them stand on the field. So we got to get them out of here. I'm not too worried about the infantry. Albric, Heroic Killing Blow, he's popping everything in an attempt to kill my Warlord, who I'm just kind of like, shuffling back and forth through my infantry. I've got my Warfire Throwers back online. I've got these guys here, but just when I thought I was safe, going to make a pretty radical charge into my backline, and of course he's going to shut them down. Rat Ogre's coming in to intercept, trying to move my ranged tools away. Get the Death Runners back here to intercept. Get the, these peasant mobs aren't really a threat anymore. So I just really need to identify what the mobile threats are, because that's really what I'm the most worried about. Here goes that Dwellers Below. It's going to tear into the Clan Vulcan Tail Slashers. Check out that Warp Lightning. That was devastating, and it hit the Damsel with the Lore of Life like head on. Plus she was standing in her own spell. That wasn't the best move, perhaps. See if we can get these clan rat spears onto... Nope, he gets into the air. All I'm trying to do right now is stabilize my back line, and it's incredibly difficult. But at least the Skaven, when they get scared and run away, they do it so quickly that it's very hard for most units to stop them from running. And at that point, you know, all of these Grail Knights, as powerful as they are, these guys are fighting rat ninjas. And their armor is 45 right now, and they're getting torn up by the Death Runners, who are probably my favorite unit in the Skaven roster. You can do so many things with them. The reason why I didn't deploy them behind my enemy's lines is because I just had this feeling they weren't going to use trebuchets, and if they did, that the battle was probably going to go in my favor anyway. They're very good at Vanguard deploying and sneaking into back lines. So Skaven Slave Slingers, a couple units here, Warplock Jezzails, we're going to try and drive them off. They still have 6 models. Look how low they are, and they haven't lost a model yet. It's incredible. The Grail Relic is keeping these Men-at-Arms and Foot Squires fighting. I've got a nice sandwich here, blasting them with that Overcast Warp Lightning, and Death Runners in the back are going to lower their armor to 15, and they're going to get devastated and pushed off. Warlock Engineer, we're going to get him into combat soon. The Warlord here is taking the brunt of these Royal Hippogriff Knights, but the Poison Wind Globadiers are tossing their little Warpstone hand grenades in, and down they go. They get melted. Don't underestimate these guys. They melt large targets. They destroy them, and they're super cheap. Super cheap. That was kind of my whole theme with this army, was to take units that, on paper, sometimes they're a little goofy and hard to micro. That's going to be the battle, guys. They're hard to micro, but let's say, you know, and this is exactly what happened. My opponent managed to shut down one aspect of my army, right? Right at the beginning, he shut down my Warpfire Throwers weapons teams. It cost him a lot to do that, because I have so many other elements in this army that were able to protect them. So sure, I lose half of these guys, they run away, they come back. Look at the chevrons on them, by the way. I did not put any chevrons on this unit. That's a rank 9 Warpfire Thrower weapons team. For only getting 15 kills. They must have killed some Hippogriff Knights or something, or something like that. But the idea is that I have so many dangerous tools that a Brettonian player who doesn't specialize in any one thing, he's not specialized in cav, and he's not specialized in infantry, is going to have a hard time shutting down all the elements of this army that make it dangerous. Warplock Jezzails, very dangerous to his large targets. Warfire Throwers, very dangerous to his cheap chaff infantry. Globadiers, dangerous to large. You know, Skaven Slave Slingers, mostly just there as chaff to skirmish. It's almost better for me if, like, let's say he sends Albric after one of my Skaven Slave Slingers. I'm like, whatever, cool, you know, that's 200 gold, go and chase it. And meanwhile, everyone else does a lot of damage. And then just enough meat and potatoes type of units. I don't think I needed to go with, like, slaves. I could have gone slaves in the whole front line and maybe got my Warlord on a Bone Breaker, but all that really does is make him a bigger, slower, easier target for someone like Albric plus Hippogriff Knights to snipe. If I had put him on a Bone Breaker, sure, he's way stronger, but he can't get knocked around. He just has to sit there and take hits. And when those units come in, they instantly get us around, they kill him. I mean, it would be almost instantaneous. It would be ridiculous. So this whole build is designed to survive. To spam out Warp Lightning, to get value that way. And then, let's say I lost half my army. I still have plenty of dangerous tools. I mean, Council Guard almost didn't even lose a model this fight. And if it had come down to a last stand, you know, with my Warlord and my Warlock, and standing on top of the Council's Guard with just a few of these elements remaining, like the Rat Ogres, we could have beaten probably everything that's left here. So it was a good battle. Just a tiny bit of micro faltering from Cotton Pucker. Now, you know, that's to be expected when you're trying to micro around a very wide formation like that. And he was trying to snipe out units with Albric and the Royal Hippogriff Knights. He recognized the number of targets and the number of threats, and he did his best to deal with it. But by the time he got into position, we had already killed basically all of his cav. I mean, his cav was rendered mostly combat ineffective by their numbers by the time they were able to engage. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that battle. It was a fun one. And I've been experimenting more and more with even wider and more diverse builds. And this is one of the first of many to come. So, as always, guys, once again, my name is Brett. My channel is Goodtalk Gaming. And I will see you in the next one, y'all. Take care.